Great.
Rob Hart, welcome to Suit Up the Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
I always appreciate when the author has like a good book background. Obviously not required to be on the show, but you have an excellent like setup just directly behind you with good looking pens even. Like
Yeah.
you got the corner.
I mean, you can't really tell. I mean, so I'm down in the living room right now, which is literally full of bookshelves because me and my partner, we're both writers and compulsive book buyers.
Yes.
So this place is just absolutely covered with them. But this is a nice little nook from which to do this.
Uh Number one thing I realized I got married last year. My wife is also a
Congratulations.
thank you. My wife is also a book person.
Yep.
And so I was able to fill the shelves behind me with just my books. Then we start having the, okay, how many more bookshelves do we need conversation? Because there
Yep.
are always more books to buy, is the thing.
Yeah, yeah, it's dangerous. I mean, we like to joke that we don't live in an apartment, we live in a library.
Yes. Okay, have you ever heard of A.B. Warburg?
I have not.
Okay, so the Warburgs were a banking family known overseas in Germany. Uh, One of the brothers that was going to like inherit the bank, the oldest one, was like a massive bibliophile. And basically he had a conversation with his younger brother. They're walking down the street. And he's like, I just want to buy more and more books. And he's like, if you give me the bank, I will purchase any book you want. And he took him up on it. And then he literally purchased the house next door to his own home and filled it with books. So
That's amazing.
fascinating guy if you ever get a chance. The Ron Chernow, who wrote the Hamilton book, wrote a book about the Warburgs.
Got it. Okay, cool.
Chef's kiss. But we're not here to talk about the Warburgs. We are here to talk about books, though. The Medusa Protocol, sequel
Yes.
to Assassins Anonymous. I'm always amazed when I read a really good book like Assassins Anonymous and it has the good legs for a series. I'm like, how is he going to be able to top this? And I think you did an amazing job of expanding the universe of Assassins Anonymous while keeping it within the the world that you created. Because there's that thing where you want to push the boundaries of the world, but not quite break it. And I think you did a great
Yeah.
job of yes and with Medusa Protocol.
Well, thank you. Thank God. Because, I'm just starting the promo cycle for this book right now. And, it's nice to finally, you live in a bubble with it for so
Hmm.
long where you write it and then yeah, like, your team gets it and they read it and you get edits and all that stuff. But now actually hitting readers, it feels very gratifying.
How long is the book process usually for you?
It kind of varies depending on the book. I
Hmm.
turned this book in last summer, so last June.
Hmm.
I'm actually turning in the third Assassin's book probably tonight. I'm going to go to my
Congratulations.
office and I'm just going to work until it's done. So we're going to see where we're going to see how that works out. But yeah, so it's typically about a year,
Hmm.
from when I send it in. But that's also since this is the series
Hmm.
there and we're doing yearly releases, I mean, if I needed more time they could bump it, whatever,
Yeah.
but yeah, roughly that's about the time frame, and it takes me probably about 6 months to write a book. So I will probably the fourth book in my contract, which might be another Assassin's book, we're not sure yet.
Hmm.
I'll probably start that in a few months because I need a little bit of a breather, but I'm also
Hmm.
working on like a whole bunch of other projects that need attention as well.
You're an extremely prolific author, and I give you huge credit for that because I always feel like it's hard to keep writing sometimes. If you get enough of a break, sometimes it takes a bit to restart. That ring rust sets in.
Yeah, it's partially desperation. I'm a full-time writer, so if
Hmm.
I'm not working, then I can't pay my rent. I can't, take my daughter to Dave and Buster's. So
Hmm.
I have to keep at it. But also, I mean, I like to be busy, and I have the best job in the world. Like
Hmm.
I get to sit around and make stuff up for a living. Like there's nothing bad about it. So it's I also I don't have a deficit of ideas. I have a deficit of time. So
Hmm.
there's a part of me that feels like there's so many things I want to be working on. It's just hard to prioritize sometimes.
I'm curious, do you have like a method of tracking your ideas as they come, like a folder spreadsheet?
Yeah, I every time I get an idea that I feel like has legs, I start a Google Doc for it.
Hmm.
And then, there are Google Docs that I've started and never touched again. Like I've got one that just says Alien Fight Club, and I honestly like I cannot even tell you why I wrote that or what the inspiration for it was. But one of my previous novels, The Paradox Hotel, which is a time travel murder mystery set in a
Hmm.
hotel for time travelers, that literally was a Google Doc that just said time travel hotel because that idea just popped in my head one day. I'm like, oh, that would be cool. And over time, I would like read something and say, oh, this feels like it would work for that, so I'll drop it in
Hmm.
the Google Doc. Or I would, get a sudden idea for like an image or a storytelling device, and it would go in the file. So I have these little repositories, and that way I can just dump material into it, and then one day I look at it and I say, oh wow, I think I actually have a book here.
Okay, so one of the concepts in the Medusa Protocol, this shouldn't spoil anything, is this prison island that has
Yeah.
full of snakes. How did that idea pop in? Like, was this something you read about and it went into the Google folder, or was this
Yeah.
something you came up with as you were researching the book?
Yeah, no, so that's a real island. That island exists. It's off the coast of Sao Paulo. And yeah, just because of evolutionary pressure, it's just full of golden lancehead pit vipers that are, very deadly, and they have no natural predators there. So I was like, man, this would be a really fun place to set a story. The only disappointment is that I always like to travel to places that I'm writing about. I kind
Hmm.
of I took a pass on this one just
Smart choice.
for safety's sake. But yeah, no, it kind of I knew that I wanted to have Astrid, one of the members of the
Hmm.
Assassins Anonymous group, get thrown into a black site prison. And when I read about this place, I was like, "Oh man, like this is perfect because it's there's no escape. You get
Yeah.
out of the prison walls, and then you're still pretty much dead."
Hmm.
So it was I just love moments like that when I read something. I'm like, oh, this is perfect. This is exactly what I need.
It's that moment where you go, oh, that's right. It's like that Sherlock Holmes thing that if we actually peel back the roofs of houses and see what's really happening, we'd go, oh, surely that must be fiction. Because
Yeah,
it's like a comic book idea, but it exists in real life, and that's amazing.
yeah. And there was even this little like, I mean, the idea is that the very corrupt president of Brazil, kind of like sells out this island for the black site prison. And I mean, Bolsonaro, that is something that I could see him having done. So it was like this all keys together. It all kind
Hmm.
of works.
Hmm. One of the things I really enjoyed the Medusa Protocol is you basically have three different storylines kind of going. You have Astrid present, Astrid past, and then you have Mark's story. Alternating perspectives in a story between two characters is sometimes just a unique thing, but you were alternating not only between two different characters, but the same character in two different timelines. Was there any subtlety to how you chose to try writing her in present versus past?
You know, it's interesting. That was I felt like a very stupid decision when I thought to do it because not only am I doing that, I'm writing it all in first person present because
Yes,
I'm like whatever, I'm just going chaos on
it was
this.
really
Um,
enjoyable, FYI. Like
thank
again,
God, thank
telling
God.
people I'm always like a little hesitant when people write in present tense, but you masterfully pulled it off.
See, and it's one of those things that I really expected to send that book to my editor and for her to be like, "Why did you do this to me? What is wrong with you?" But she was like, "No, it works." And I'm like, "Thank God." But I mean, the first book was really about Mark
Hmm.
and his story and how he became this person and what his rock bottom was and what the change was. And I really wanted to turn the lens this time around
Hmm.
because even though there's still story to tell about Mark, because now he's a sponsor in the program and being a
Hmm.
sponsor is its own thing. I wanted to look at another character because you've got all these great characters in this room. They're
Hmm.
all former killers. They all have their own traumas, their own, life journeys that took them to where they are. I mean, the big challenge was making sure it was different from Mark's. It had
Yes.
to be, different inciting incidents, different reasons. I very much like one thing I did very specifically was Mark struggles with suicidal ideation
Hmm.
And I made sure that Astrid didn't do that because I didn't want all of these characters to just be sitting around being like, I should just kill myself.
Yeah.
But yeah, with writing the past and the present with Astrid, I was trying to kind of like, you know, get to that point of like rage and anger in the beginning
Hmm.
for her because that's really the thing that drives her. And then she's a little bit more serene in the present day, but she's still struggling with a lot of these things, like their traumas, their addictions. At the end of the day, it doesn't have to be a substance to be addictive, and there
Hmm.
are similarities in brain structure between addicts and killers. Not to say that addicts are killers, but
Hmm.
it's a very it's an interesting territory to look at because when you're thinking about someone who kills people for a living, there's the risk reward of it. There's
Hmm.
the endorphin rush. There's it just feels good to be good at something, you know.
Yes.
And it's very easy to convince yourself that you're doing it for the right reasons when that might not necessarily be the case. So playing with these ideas of like how Astrid was justifying what she was doing until she got to that breaking point was really, really fun.
Hmm. One of the things that started in Assassin's Anonymous that you carry through this book that I thought was just a great, again, the structure of how Assassin's Anonymous is supposed to work with the 12-step program is you aren't accepting a higher power isn't necessarily about embracing any religion so much as it is you are not God. And when you
Yeah.
have played with you can take a life in a breath, that God complex starts. And I thought that was a really interesting nugget for how each of these characters have had to interact with the world.
Yeah, the relationship between recovery and God is an interesting one because obviously a lot of that was rooted in religion when it was
Hmm.
created. But now, and look, I'm not in recovery, but I have a lot of friends who are, who were very,
Hmm.
very helpful in terms of research and sharing stories with me. I had a friend take me to an open meeting, so I was able to experience that, which was really beautiful. And yeah, it's interesting that you come into this program and you have to figure out what that god or higher power is,
Hmm.
and so that's a whole big can of worms right there. But in terms of these characters, you're right, it's like they feel like, well, I choose who lives and dies, like that makes me a god. And
Hmm.
that's let go and let God is a recovery term where you're basically surrendering to your higher power, where they've kind of repurposed it a little bit for assassins where they say, just it's letting go of that feeling of I can be like a
Hmm.
god.
Hmm. One of the other things I wanted to make a note of, because I think it's what brings, there's a lot of crazy things that happen in this world. Shockingly enough, the island of deadly vipers is like an actual thing, but there's a lot of big, almost comic booky things, very John Wickish world that are really high concept, which is amazing, incredible. But to anchor that, you let the characters take damage in the stories. And that's something that I know as when I write characters is sometimes hard to hurt them. How difficult is it to bring pain to your characters slash um how conscious is it to anchor the world in a real thing?
It was really important to do that. That was because look, whenever you're writing a story that's very action based, you have to make a decision about what that reality of pain is going to look like. And so
Hmm.
the John Wick movies are a good example. I love the John Wick movies, absolutely love them, but they are Looney Tunes movies.
Yes.
It's Looney Tunes rules. When John Wick is getting knocked out of a four-story window, smashing into
Hmm.
a car, and then gets up and keeps going, we know we are dealing with a level of unreality, and
Yes.
and and that's fine because they've created that container. We buy into it because
Hmm.
it's the mood that they've established.
We've purchased that
Uh,
premise by that point.
exactly. So for these books going into them, I knew that because I was dealing with characters who had experienced traumas, who were trying to grow and be better, there had to be pain. There had to
Hmm.
be a level of reality. And again, not knocking the John Wick movies, but
Yeah.
you think about it, and every one of those guys that John Wick is shooting in the head had a family, or
Hmm.
or 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 just someone in this world who loved them. and
Hmm.
now that person is going to be grieving, and that's an interesting space to play in. So I wanted to kind of write this like big arch actiony book, but not
Hmm.
forget the humanity of the characters and really what it is that violence can do to us as people. You know, I
Hmm.
mean, I only killed a couple of people for research for this one, so I can't really speak. No, but I do fight train. I
Hmm.
trained in Krav Maga for years. I train in Muay Thai now.
Hmm.
And so I'm also hyper aware of what the body is capable of, you know,
Yes.
what it feels like to get punched in the face. You know, I've had my ass handed to me a couple of times, and it's a there are so many facets of that are amazing and interesting. And yeah, you know, just the pain is a very, very necessary part of the process.
Hmm. That's an interesting dichotomy to a certain extent. You have people who, for the for them to be the assassin levels that they are entering this program, they have immense levels of discipline as characters.
Yes,
And then they're taking another step of discipline in going into this program.
it's it's such a fun challenge. You know, it's like it's weird. It makes it both harder and easier because like just killing someone is so easy, but being
Hmm.
thrust into a situation that's do or die and you have to get out
Hmm.
of it without killing the other person,
Yes.
it's so much more fun because it makes me think so much more creatively.
Hmm.
But then sometimes I sit there and I'm like, God, how am I going to pull this off? I have no idea. But you know, it's just it's fun, man. Like this is the most fun I've ever had writing. It's almost ridiculous.
Well, it definitely shows in the writing because it does have this huge creative joy to it. Like you write action scenes that feel visceral, that feel real, and feel anchored. They aren't just, oh, I'm watching a James Bond movie from with starring Roger Moore where things are exploding and characters are literally flying away in rocket packs. It feels grounded while at the same token having very realistic action to it, which I enjoyed. One of the other notes that I had just reviewing my material was you do a great job of following a principle I remember reading about that isn't followed as often as it should be, which is when you have characters fighting, there should be a goal that one of the characters is trying to get to for that fight to even be happening. And two, usually they want to end the fight as soon as they can. They don't want to
Yeah,
protract this for some visual bullet time awesomeness that's on screen. They just want to get the fight over with.
yeah.
And you do a good job of making the fights actually feel real. Someone's actually trying to accomplish something. And usually someone is actually trying to get away.
Yeah, you know, oh man, I could talk about this for hours. So I teach. I do a lot of teaching with like Writer's Digest, and I teach in an MFA program at Seton Hill University. And so I teach a lot about writing action. And I always start off with this idea that kung fu movies and musicals are the same. And once you understand that, you can kind of understand action scenes and how to write that because it's about creating this container, right? Where
Hmm.
you've got characters interacting and the emotion hits a height. And when that emotion gets too big, everyone either starts singing or they start fighting.
Mm.
And every good song and every good fight scene is a finite amount of time in which
Hmm.
both story and character have to move forward,
Hmm.
but you're also showing off the skill and the proficiency of those characters, and that goes to the concept of authority, right? Like characters have you want to establish authority for your
Hmm.
characters because it'll establish your authority as a writer with the reader. And the two ways to do that are the head and the heart method. And the
Hmm.
heart method is through like, you know, vulnerability and emotions and honesty. And the head method is through technical proficiency and skill and knowledge.
Hmm.
So when you show these characters doing something at a very high level of talent that you couldn't
Hmm.
yourself do, you just inherently kind of trust them. So you kind of cram all this stuff together, and then you look at the way that a you know a musical's not going to put the showstopper number at the beginning; they're going to put it at the end. A kung fu movie is not going to put the best fight scene at the beginning; they're going to put it at the end, and it's a slow rise and
Hmm.
it's a slow progression until you get to that. And really, once you start putting all those things together, you kind of see it. Like you know, you and when you can treat a fight scene like a container, it's like what are the stakes? What's the geography? What does everyone want? How are they trying to get out of there? How are they trying to move on to the next thing? I think it's. I'm not saying I cracked the formula, but I'm working on cracking the formula.
Well, it definitely shows in the writing. Again, I am the person that when I read a chase scene or an action scene, as much as I enjoy it, there are moments where I'm like, okay, I'm fatigued. We just need to keep scanning the pages. I have four more books to read right now, and this is just going on. But you keep it fresh and no individual. The action scenes in the Medusa Protocol and Assassin's Anonymous don't feel repetitive ever. It's always something a little fresh, a little different, different stakes. You are invested in the outcome of events beyond will the character survive?
Yeah, and part of that is just for me. I
Hmm.
mean, I need it to be interesting. I need it to be different. I'm
Wait, you saying
like I
writers need to write for themselves sometimes?
sometimes. But yeah, so I'm working on the third Assassin's book now, and like there's some action scenes in there that like they're fun. They're fun. I can't get into it too much, but the book will be out, I guess, next summer,
Yes.
and it's a little different from the first two. There are some things that I'm changing about the narrative structure. There's some fun ideas, and it was an idea that so the book is called Three Hitmen and a Baby,
Love the
and
title.
I went to I'll give you the little synopsis. But it's basically, Valencia has this little girl, Lucia,
Hmm.
and the story jumps 3 years from the Medusa Protocol, and Valencia has to go take care of something, and she can't take Lucia, and so Mark and Booker and Astrid are like, well, we'll watch her. And things go very poorly, like really quickly, like lots of bad stuff happens, and because they're like, we're three of the most dangerous people in the world. We can take care of a toddler, and it's like, uh, and I really thought this book was going to be a romp
Hmm.
because the Medusa Protocol and Assassins, like they deal with some heavy themes, and I was
Hmm.
like, man, people have stuck with me thus far. If they're making it to the third book, they deserve a reward. They deserve a cake. So let's write a cake book that's just like kind of just focus on the fun. And now, like I'm doing the final pass through edit, and it's just there's some emotionally brutal moments in there,
Oh.
and I'm just like, oh man, this didn't work out the way I intended.
Well, it makes sense to a certain degree. Parental relationships, having children involved, really bring this whole different level of like gut emotion to a story. I just watched The
Yeah.
Wild Robot and I was like, I did not realize a story where a
Oh,
robot raising a like runt gosling was going to reach into my heart and squeeze. I literally sat there, I'm like, I don't cry in movies, and I'm starting to. I didn't cry when James Bond died in No Time to Die, but I'm watching this and my eyes are starting to tear up.
I haven't seen it yet because my daughter went with her mom, which was a bit of a bummer because I did want to see it. But yeah, man, I watch movies with my daughter. Like we like Inside Out. That movie is like emotional terrorism. Every time she puts it on, I'm like, why are you doing this to me? Because I know by the end I'm going to be a sobbing mess.
Hmm.
And it's the amazing thing about kids movies because I remember kids movies when I was young were like, here's some robots and they're smashing together. And now you watch a kids movie and it's like, here's a story about generational trauma. And it's like, ah, oh, God, like Encanto, man, Encanto killed me.
Hmm. It just, again, it gives a multi-layer to the story, which, again,
Yeah,
Three Hitmen and a Baby, that I'm excited to read it. I'm a big fan of John Ford Westerns, so like the Three Godfathers and that concept,
yeah.
just I love that it continues echoing throughout time. And since you are a man with a fantastic mustache, I desperately hope that there are characters. There's at least one Tom Selleck style mustache in Three Hitmen and a Baby, maybe, possibly.
I mean, you know what? There wasn't, but I'm halfway through the final edit, so we'll see what I come up with tonight while I'm working on it.
Perfect. People don't know Three Men and a Baby, that Tom Selleck, Ted Danson, and Gutenberg. That was the highest grossing movie of the year when it came out.
Well, it was also directed by Leonard Nimoy, which is
Yes.
interesting.
Fuck. Like
Yeah, yeah,
this is the craziness. Assassins Anonymous just had the paperback release recently as of
yep.
recording. I've got my copy behind me. I just wanted to call it two things with this. First, you continued the same structure with the Medusa Protocol, where the cover is beautifully stripped down but still interesting and unique. I'm
Yep.
always the person that when I walk into a bookstore, I'm like, okay, what is the trend with cover designs that we see happening? And I'm 100% certain that much like the way that Malcolm Gladwell books like redefine the nonfiction cover, I think Assassins Anonymous is going to start redefining the way action thriller covers look. So I'm waiting for that. Fantastic job on the design.
I mean, I got nothing there. That's all Tal Goretzky at Penguin Random House. You know, he is so smart. He is so good at what he does. It was one of those things where they were like, you know, well, what's your vision for the cover? And I'm like, I don't like, don't ask me that. Like, I wrote it. Like, that's not my job. And to be perfectly honest, like I used to work in publishing, and I know that authors universally have the worst ideas for their own covers. Like that's
I
just
believe, yes.
it's not our sacrament. So
Yes.
I told them I was like, look, there are two things that I don't want. I don't want a silhouette of a man running with a gun because
Hmm.
good God, and I don't want a
There are enough of
generic
those.
cityscape. Like
Yes.
don't do those two things.
Hmm.
Give me whatever. And I was it was funny. This came in, and I opened my email and I look at it. And I'm like, oh my God. And I texted it to my agent, and he's like, I don't know, like this might be too masculine. This might not appeal to women. And I was at my friend's softball game for a mostly women's softball league, and I'm in bleachers surrounded by women. So I just start passing the phone around. I'm like, what do you think of this? And they're like, oh my God, that's amazing. And I'm like, Josh, you are wrong. It is hitting with the females. Um, so yeah, you know, with the second one, I was just like, you know, just do it. Just I trust you. They gave me
Hmm.
like a few comps, but they were mostly, you know, what we ended up with. I think the only change I asked for is that the original cover it was purple instead of green,
Hmm.
and I thought the green was a little bit stronger.
Especially with the title like the Medusa Protocol, like it just inherently
Yeah,
start
yeah.
thinking snakes.
But so now, where literally last night I was emailing with my editor, she's like, "Hey, you know, we got to start thinking about the cover for the third one." And I was like, Is it too dark to do a knife through a teddy bear?" And she's like, "Yes, yes, it is." I'm like, "All right." So we jammed a little bit back and forth, and you know, she's going to send everything to Tal, and Tal's going to do something amazing. Like I'm not even
Hmm.
worried, but I'm excited to see what he comes up with because just the yeah, the visual style of the series is just so cool, and I feel so lucky to have just I look, I've never had a bad book cover. Like all my
Hmm.
covers I've been very happy with, but like these feel like, you know, borderline iconic.
Yes.
They're so cool.
Well, I love that it feels like a good album cover, like to a
Yeah,
rocking music album.
yeah, yeah. And then my agency got this bright idea that they were like, "Oh, well, maybe you should try to throw a knife through a coffee cup." And did you see that video?
I saw the video. I actually have it as one of the notes to bring
Oh,
up.
good. Yeah. That was, oh my God. So yeah, it was me and my daughter. Like she was filming while I'm trying to throw a knife through my book. And you know, I'm a little surprised I haven't gotten a phone call from her mom yet, you know, being like, what the hell were you doing? But yeah, no, you know, she was so excited to help, and she did such a good job. Like when and I had the thing that bummed me out is that she is such a funny kid, and she is such a little performer. Like she just starts singing the final countdown.
She did.
like I'm like, you're 10. Why do you even know that song? Um, there were so like the original cut of the video was like 5.5 minutes long, and that's just a little too long for internet
Hmm.
like Instagram. But she had so many funny little bits that I had to cut out. Like at one point, she's running back. She's like, "Okay, you have to try again because that was not very good." And I'm like, "Thank you, kiddo. I love you too. You're great." Um, but yeah, no, it was one of the like I hate creating content.
Hmm.
You know, like it's not what I want to do. It's not
Hmm.
like I can't do TikTok.
Hmm.
I know TikTok is big for some authors, but the idea of like coming up with videos and like, you
Yeah.
know, some kind of like because you have to have a regular release schedule of
Hmm.
some kind so that you're kind of like feeding the algorithm. And it's just it's not my jam. But you know, when my agency suggested this because they wanted to do it for an internal promo thing with like foreign publishers and stuff,
Hmm.
initially I was like the only thing that attracted me to it was like we want you to throw knives, and I'm like, okay. I don't have throwing knives, but I should have throwing knives. So I ordered throwing knives. And it was just it was fun and it was goofy. So it was one of those things where it was like, okay, cool, like this works for me. And then yeah, like I posted it, people went nuts. The Barnes and Noble Instagram account signed it since I'm their June mystery pick, which is great. My publisher is thrilled about it. They want to use it, and I'm like, I guess I just gotta make more videos where I almost put my daughter into mortal danger. It plays apparently.
The parent-child relationship, it grabs at the heartstrings.
Yeah, yeah. No, she's and it's something that I love about her so much is I was a very shy kid and there's a
Hmm.
reason I'm a writer. It's because
Hmm.
like, a plausible deniability. I could sit in a room by myself and do it. And she is like she's currently in rehearsals for Fiddler on the Roof. She just did
Oh.
the kids edition of Footloose, which was weird. But she is such an incredible little performer and she's a great singer and an actress and I admire it so much because I never could have
Hmm.
done that kind of stuff when I was a
Hmm.
kid. So there's almost a degree to which like, doing that video with her, like because that was more of her thing, that
Yeah.
that kind of like performance aspect, it was a great way to connect with her. But I also
Hmm.
think it kind of like, she got something out of me to do
Hmm.
that. Like she got me to step out of my shell a little bit, which I appreciated.
There's a line that I really like from, I can't remember which Sherlock Holmes story it is, but basically he's like, art in the blood takes many strange forms. And I always find it
Yep.
fascinating to see how creativity expresses itself differently in different people like that. So it's really neat to see that.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's fun. It's I mean, look, like, I'm a writer. Her mom was like an English literature major. She was going to be a smart, bookish, artistic kid no matter what. So,
Um, on the note of the throwing knives, I was just really curious. I know some people, when they write action stories, they do a very deep dive into the weapons, technology, etc. For you, how much is going into the make and model of every weapon important for when you're constructing the story?
I think it's important just for the level of specificity for the reality of these characters. They're all
Hmm.
weapons experts.
Yeah.
So they're not going to say, oh, that's a gun. They're going to say, oh, that's a Glock 19.
Hmm.
They're not going to say, "Oh, that's a long sword." They're going to say, "Oh, that's a Tonto blade."
Hmm.
Like they know and understand these things. And going back to authority,
Yeah.
technical proficiency and knowledge. You're not gonna believe them as well as you're not gonna buy them as these incredibly dangerous people if they just look at something and give you like a surface read. Like they're giving you a very exacting, understanding read of everything that's going on and that it's a bit of a challenge sometimes because then I've got to make sure. I remember years ago writing a novella and referenced a style of Beretta
Hmm.
having a safety, and my friend who's in the military read it, and she's like, that Beretta doesn't have a safety, and I'm like, ah, shit. And that's when I learned the lesson about the importance of how of research and making sure you get these things accurate because for the most part, the average reader is not going to know the difference, but the people who
Yeah.
do are going to lose a little faith in you.
Hmm.
And I was happy that on Assassins, Steve Concoli, who's a military guy and an author, he blurbed it and he was like, "You only got one thing wrong, but I'm the only one who's going to notice." And I was like, "All right, cool." It was like a little technical spec of one of
Hmm.
the night vision goggles toward the end. And he's like, "They actually work like this." And so I literally wrote a scene in the next book in which I did it correctly, just as sort of like a little apology.
That's fantastic. You made a comment a couple of minutes ago and that creating content isn't your thing, but you keep a very regular Substack. Like, hats off to you because blogging, I don't, can we even call Substacks blogging anymore? Like, I'm not certain where it falls between the blog, email, newsletter. It is its own thing now. You keep a very regular Substack. Do you have any particular practices to maintain that regularity, or do you just not consider it content creation?
You know, you're right. You're right. It is content creation. That's fair. I try to come at it from a place of expressing whatever I feel is important to me in a given moment.
Hmm.
Like it feels more personal to me than just like I'm going to, give you a list of things that you need to do or you have to buy my book or you have to come to this event or whatever. I try to just sneak that stuff in there. But and I try to keep it regular. Like when I'm not as busy, I'll try to do one like once a week or once every 2 weeks. Right now, I'm very much in a place of like, oh shit, I haven't done one in a while. I probably should
Hmm.
do one. Or I've got some events coming up. I need to promote those, and then how do I kind of like hook that into whatever's going on? So yeah, it's a weird liminal space between blogging and newsletters. I mean, it's kind of both,
Hmm.
because it is such sort of like a blog, but it is going to people's inboxes. And yeah, I don't know. The thing that I like about it is that I'm not subject to the algorithm. That's the
Hmm.
thing that drives me crazy about stuff
Yes.
like, Instagram. That's why I
Hmm.
barely use Facebook anymore. I got off Twitter. I'm using Blue Sky. Blue Sky's a little bit better because
Hmm.
supposedly they don't prioritize links, but it's all those email addresses are going to get that email.
Yeah.
That's my list. I own that list. Whereas Instagram might decide, like, oh, well, you didn't pay to boost this, so we're not going to
Yeah.
show it to as many of your followers. And that's why I tell people, you really, Substack or whatever, it doesn't matter. It's important to
Hmm.
build out an email list because that's something that you can stay in contact with people directly on.
Hmm. I read Perennial Seller by Ryan Holiday back whenever it first came out, and I probably still read it once every 2 years. And I think that's in that book. He's just like, email is the thing that has not gone away. All of the technology advances we've had, all of the different platforms that have risen and died, goodbye MySpace, RIP Vine, email's still here. Therefore, you can kind of project email will continue forward as a viable method of communication.
I've never thought of it like that, but that's absolutely correct. Because yeah, whenever there's like a new social media platform, I'm slow to join it because I just like when everyone was joining Mastodon, I'm like,
Hmm.
nah, I don't even know what that is. It took me a while to get into Blue Sky, and the only reason I started actively using Blue Sky is because Twitter turned into a Nazi cesspool.
Yeah.
So, and I was like, I'm just not going to be
Hmm.
associated with these idiots anymore. Like, I'm out. But until then, like, I had created a Blue Sky account and never used it. So I think we're kind of like at a fracture point where you used to, like, the big three were kind of like, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And now
Hmm.
you've got, TikTok is obviously a big thing, though. Who knows what's going on with the federal government right now, in
Yeah.
terms of, like, because technically it's supposed to be illegal now. They're just
Yeah.
not enforcing it. And you've got all these attempts to create new ones, and I don't. I think it's you saw that with streaming. Like, Netflix was
Hmm.
like the big show, and
Yes.
everything was Netflix. But now things became so fractured that the bubble kind of burst.
Hmm.
And I think the bubble on social media kind of burst, is in that no one's really gonna have. I mean, Facebook is still a disgusting corporate giant, but
Yes.
even they've kind of like the shine's come off their apple a little bit. So yeah, yeah, no, that's exactly right. Email is still around. So I feel
Hmm.
like that's the one thing that's really worth investing in.
Hmm. And RSS feeds. Subscribe to the podcast.
See, RSS feeds, I don't understand. Like, because I thought that was a thing, and then they weren't a thing, or are they a thing again?
I think that so like they still exist. So complete random rabbit trail. Most blogs still have an RSS feed that, in theory, can be shuffled through somewhere. Like if you have the technology to shove it into a specific, like this is your feed, you can still get
Okay,
it. And
yeah,
podcasts, you still have to like submit the RSS feed into different podcast platforms for it to be
okay,
spread out. So it's like at this point it used to be like the weird code thing. It's still like the weird code thing, and now just there are enough places to put it. We never see it anymore. Is why
okay,
basic
okay,
understanding. I I love podcasting. It's one of those things I remember being like the weird, no one, like there's early 2000s, it was a thing. It was like online radio. Now there's podcast platforms everywhere, which is what I like about it. It's a decentralized version of gain information out, the same way that email
yeah,
works.
yeah, yeah. No, I appreciate that explanation because there are certain that, like, I'm 42. I am officially at an age where, like, there are some things I look at and I'm like, I'm not
You look
going to learn that.
fantastic for
I'm done.
42. You are
Well, thank
aging
you,
like
thank
Harrison
you.
Ford.
Oh God, I'm trying my best. Clean living, which is that's a lie. I don't live cleanly at all, but yeah, no, I'm just at that age where, like, I don't want to learn new things. Like,
Hmm.
at least when it comes to computers, it's
Yeah.
like if there's like a new social media platform, I look at it and I'm like, I don't have the space in my brain for that anymore. Like
Mhm.
I'm done. You know,
Is it
I got
valuable?
my Instagram account. Well,
Hmm.
that's the thing. It's like I don't know that it is because like social media doesn't sell books.
No.
It does not. Like posting incessantly. Like I uh, I post stuff that I'm at the point being like 8 or 9 books into a career. Like
Hmm.
I've got a few fans, so like I can keep them updated about things that they might not otherwise hear about because no one's sitting around it like waking up every day and googling like what is Rob Hart doing today. You have to have like that a little bit, but also like it's nice to keep in contact with my friends and like professional contacts and stuff
Hmm.
like that. I don't think I'm selling books. I think I'm just
Yeah.
kind of like doing my thing and hoping that one random guy who read one of my books once sees it and goes, "Oh, this jerk has a new book. Let's go get it."
Hmm. I, I'm hitting the point where I'm starting to understand how my parents felt when like Blu-rays overtook DVDs and that like
Yep.
level of moderate confusion, but it's still a disc. Why do I need a new player? And just like that kind of attitude. I tried playing Minecraft with, I got a lot of little siblings. So like my youngest sibling is like 20 years younger than me. Crazy
Okay.
family. But the point being, he tried like playing Minecraft and thing. I was like, oh yeah, I remember how to play Minecraft. Log on to Minecraft. I'm like, I don't recognize any of this. And that's the moment I went, this is how time changes.
Yeah, yeah. We are all doomed, but you
Hmm.
know, it'll be fine.
It'll be fine. When you wrote Assassins Anonymous, like because you had the Ash McKenna series, and then you've written a bunch of standalones. Was the initial plan for Assassins to be a standalone book too, or did it have the inkling of a series in your mind from the start?
That's an interesting question. I mean, I started Assassins at a point in my career where I thought my career was over. Because Warehouse and Paradox Hotel were like massive, massive, massive deals. I got paid so much money for those books; it was disgusting, and they just didn't sell to expectations.
Mm,
Because that's the curse. You get a lot of money, you got to sell a lot of copies,
hmm.
and both books did good, but they should have done great, and they
Okay.
didn't do great.
Hmm.
And at that point, after Paradox Hotel, I had gone back and forth with my publisher on some pitches, and they were finally like, "Look, we're not sold on any of these. You are welcome to start pitching other publishers." So essentially, I got dropped. And I had my little dark night of the soul, and was upset for a little bit, and then I was like, I'm going to write this book. Like, I want to write this
Hmm.
book. I don't know if this is the right thing for me to write next, but it feels like a good pitch. It feels like a good idea. I'm just gonna have fun with it. And I was also in this cycle with Warehouse and Paradox of like you get to that level and you're trying to write to make other people happy. And then I
Hmm.
was like, no, I'm just gonna make myself happy on this. So the book was almost written as like a dying gasp, and I thought I was like done after that. And in the back of my head, I was like, yeah, this could sustain a series.
Hmm.
Warehouse and Paradox, I wrote very specifically to kind of like blow up the sandbox and walk away.
Hmm.
I just wanted to like play in the standalone world for a little while. But I mean, when I was writing Assassins, I didn't have a publisher for it. Like, I didn't know what was going to happen to it. So I just assumed, like, I'm just going to write this and see what happens.
Hmm.
And when my agent sent it out and we started getting people who were interested, the question immediately was, like, how many more of these do you have in you? And I'm like, I mean, I could write 20 of these.
Hmm.
I mean, they're fun, they're fast, they're loose. I've got all these characters. I can change perspectives. I can move things around. So
Hmm.
it's funny. I thought I was never going to write a series again after the Ash books, which was a great experience. But after 5 books, you kind of feel like you're inviting people to a Tupperware party. It's just like,
Hmm.
it feels like a lot. But yeah, writing the third book now, like it's so gratifying to be like, okay, like there are things I can do with these characters now that I couldn't do in the first book because it wouldn't have
Hmm.
worked. But now I'm at this place where we can get away with a lot of this stuff. And it feels very satisfying, and I'm happy to be here. I'm now at a point where I've got one more book in my contract with Putnam, and it might be another Assassin's book. It might be a standalone because I kind of feel like maybe it'd be nice to take a break and write something
Hmm.
else. But I don't know. I don't know. I got to figure it out.
I'm happy for you to, much like I want Keanu Reeves to continue making John Wick movies until the day he dies, I want you to continue writing Assassins Anonymous books because these are really fun, profound books. Like they actually have a heart and a message and a meaning to them. It's popcorn fun with more to it. It's not just empty calories. So I appreciate that.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I mean, every book I write is therapy. It's me trying to figure out my own shit. It's just the great thing is that I'm getting paid instead of having to pay somebody else. But yeah, I like doing that. I like taking, big, fun, high concept stuff. But really when it boils down to it, it's about, can we change?
Hmm.
Can we grow into better people? Because, when I started writing this book, I was at a place where it's like I'm getting older, and I'm like, man, I've done things I'm not proud of. I've made a lot of mistakes. Like, can I be the kind of person that I want my
Hmm.
daughter to see me as? Like, can I be
Hmm.
the kind of person that I could be fully proud of and start to kind of like put down some of those regrets a little bit,
Hmm.
but while also paying respect to the fact that they happened. It's hard. So I figured like the best way to explore that was through professional killers.
One comment, one my final questions I like to ask guests is, do you have a writing routine? And if so, what's it look like? In research prepping for this interview, I saw that you had a video about why you should not have a writing routine. So I'm curious, A, what distinguishes consistency from routine for you? And what do you do to maintain consistency in writing?
That's oh man, okay. Well, look. So the first thing I always like to say when it comes to this kind of stuff is that it's okay to kind of like pluck ideas from other people, but
Hmm.
nothing I say is a rule. Everything that I have, every tool I have, is what works for me.
Hmm.
And not everything is going to work for everyone. And the example I use is that there are some people who say in order to be a professional writer, you have to write every day. That is not true. I
Hmm.
am a professional writer. I literally make my living doing this. I don't write every day because I can't.
Hmm.
Like life happens. Sometimes I just want to like go to a water park with my daughter and spend the
Yeah.
day there and not have to worry about work stuff. Like
Hmm.
I can still like the work gets done or it doesn't. Like that's the only important
Yes.
thing. But I have had people come to me and say, "Oh, I hear this that you have to write every day, and I just can't because I work, I have a sick relative, whatever." And then they build this wall in their head, and they're like, "I can't do it now," and it's not true. Again, the work gets done or it doesn't.
Hmm.
So for me, it's somewhere between consistency and routine.
Hmm.
A deadline helps. It's really important for me to have a deadline. I just like to be busy because if I'm sitting around with nothing to do, I start to go a little mad.
Hmm.
Uh, I try to carve out my like I'll kind of like look at the week ahead, usually on like Saturday or Sunday and say, okay, what does my week look like? For example, yesterday I knew I had nothing to do. So I went to my office. I
Hmm.
keep a little office space in Manhattan so that I can kind of get out of the house sometimes to focus. And
Hmm.
yeah, I spent the entire day doing that. I know I'm going to spend the entire day, running around to some Barnes and Nobles and then going and doing that again today. But then I know on Wednesday, I'm going to go to the gym and just take it easy because I
Hmm.
need that break.
Hmm.
I've worked consistently for the last couple of weeks. I need some decompression time.
Yes.
Uh, yeah, it's hard. There are also days where I know that I should work, but I just don't feel like I'm in the right place for it, and it feels like too laborious. So I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna watch a movie,
Hmm.
or I'm gonna go for a walk, or I'm gonna go to the gym and I'm gonna train for a little bit because you also I don't think you can always force it.
Yes.
I mean, sometimes you have to. If you're on a deadline, you
Hmm.
kind of have to, and I
Yeah.
do think it is why I don't necessarily believe in the concept of writer's block. I don't
Hmm.
think that there is something physically blocking you from being able to be creative. I just think it's like not to be too gross about it, but like, do you sit on the toilet if you don't have to go to the bathroom?
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
know, like you don't. So there are times where it's like the writing's not there, but that's okay. It's like it's happening in the background. So I'm going to go clear my head a little bit and try to create a better scenario in which this can happen for me. And I'm just going to be patient. I'm going to wait for it instead of getting in my head and getting upset at myself and getting frustrated. And then it just compounds and gets worse.
Hmm.
Um, I feel like I tried to answer your question and just kind of rambled a lot.
That's okay. I think that's a really strong premise. One of the things I've noticed as I asked this question is writers that really good writers tend to know that what works for them doesn't work for everyone else. Writers
Yes,
that
yes.
say what I do will work for everyone is usually very, very, very wrong about a lot. That's just
Yep.
my off the cuff experience talking to people. The other thing I really liked is the emphasis on creating the conditions for creativity to a certain extent. Being
Yeah.
able to, there are times where like performance anxiety sets in and you can't just get the words out. But going to the gym, something else, taking a walk, letting your brain have the conditions for those sparks to occur.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, something that I actually feel really proud of myself is in the last like 2 months. I mean, I've been working nonstop because I'm
Hmm.
doing the third Assassin's book. I'm also writing a series with Jeff Rake, who is the showrunner of Manifest, the TV
Oh,
show.
cool.
Yeah, it's fun. It's like a cool sci-fi project. The first book is coming out in January. It's called Detour, and and then I'm a dad, and
Hmm.
I do a lot of the housework because my partner's schedule is a little wonky, and so I finally kind of hit a groove where I can feel my body getting to a place of burnout, and I say,
Yes.
okay, I need to take a day off. If I don't take a day
Yes.
off, I'm going to lose my mind,
Hmm.
and so I think the last couple of months I've actually kind of navigated, without as many manic episodes. Um, but yeah, it's recognizing, it's just being able to understand your body's signals
Hmm.
sometimes. And yeah, and back to what you were saying, you're right. It's like that there are no rules. There are
Hmm.
no rules. Like you kind of have to learn the rules and then you break the rules, but
Hmm.
everything is a suggestion, I think. Like there are things that I have like so okay, I'm good friends with Jordan Harper.
Hmm.
Jordan Harper wrote She Ride Shotgun. Everybody knows Last King California. He is a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant writer. By my money, one of the best writers working today. And we were talking about, writing linear versus, in stops and starts. And he just writes his favorite scenes
Hmm.
and then stitches them together. That is insane to me. That is absolutely like I was like, I don't know how that works. And he's like, well, I don't know how you write a book from beginning to end. That seems ridiculous to me. But it's a great example of the way that like Jordan is one of my favorite writers. I think he is exceptionally talented and he does something that I would never want to do, that would never
Hmm.
work for me. And if I did it, it wouldn't make me a better writer, but that's his process. I have mine. It's okay. Like we're both doing fine. So it's that reminder that like I've seen people get hung up on this, like especially in teaching, where someone told me a student submitted something to me and they were writing a murder mystery. That they write a book as their thesis, and the murder happens on page like 4 or 5. But it's just you don't get to know the characters enough. It's
Hmm.
too fast out of the gate. And she's like, oh well, one of the other students told me that the murder has to happen by page X. I'm like,
Oh.
first off, don't listen to the other students because they're students.
Hmm.
I'm telling you that I don't give a shit about any of these characters and none of this makes sense.
Hmm.
Move it back. Establish these things first. Establish your place, establish your victim, establish this, establish that.
Hmm.
And she reworked it, and it was great. It was just absolutely great. But someone told her this has to happen at this point, and she was like, "Uh oh, guess I have to do it," and the work suffered. You
Yes.
know, so again, nothing's a rule. It's just a strong suggestion. And if you want to reject it, if you can figure out a better way, reject it and do it the better way.
Hmm. Rob, this has been a delightful conversation. We could probably talk for hours more, but where can people go to learn more about you and your work? Obviously, TikTok is where you're the most prolific, so people should subscribe to you there.
Oh no, I would say more Instagram because oh no, oh I'm sorry, you were making a
I
joke.
was making a joke. That's okay.
Yeah. I was like, oh man. Shit.
He's like, this interviewer has paid no attention to anything that's being said on this entire interview.
No, well, okay. You know what? Sometimes they don't, and you've been completely on point up until now. But no one's perfect. No, I would say I use Instagram the most and Blue Sky. On Instagram, I'm Rob W Hart one. On Blue Sky, I'm like Rob W Hart dot blah 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 dot blah whatever those
I'll
stupid
find it and
handles.
put the link in for you.
Well, if you go to my website, robwhart.com, you can find my Substack, my Instagram, my Blue Sky, my books,
Mhm.
anything you might want to know.
Hmm. And the Medusa Protocol is available on what date?
That is June 24th. So
Awesome.
we are getting close.
We are getting close. I will link everything in the show notes. Rob, thanks again for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a blast.